I've got a couple announcements that we're going to go ahead and start. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming. A lot of you guys are from the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. A lot of you guys are not, and we welcome you all. We have 421, is that right? 421 folks have logged on so far, watching on Zoom at home in the comfort of their homes. So welcome you guys as well. A couple things. I want to thank our board of directors. Our board of directors did a fantastic job on responding to all your crazy emails, responding to all your crazy questions, suggestions, and all kinds of things. And Bob Anderson just did an absolute stellar job. I want to reach out to him. And Joan Pellico for putting it together, and Howard and the rest of the board. Thank you very much, all of you guys. My name is Matt Epstein. I'm the president of the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. And again, I want to thank you guys all for coming. Also, I want to thank you, our council member, and you, our mayor, for coming as well. Thank you. We're looking forward to this. And of course, Phil Schuman. That's all you have for Phil? Come on, you guys. All right. So I do want to let you, I just want to express, as again, I put it in the newsletter, but some people didn't read the whole thing. The reason that, there are 14 candidates for mayor, and again, I love it, you guys. You guys are here to hear the issues, and that's great. We, as the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, we've put together many, many debates before. As a matter of fact, these two candidates have both been to our candidate debates in the past in different capacities, and we put many of these on. This time, our board decided to only have our two electeds. In CD4, which we are sitting in, we have our council member who we elected, and we have our mayor who we elected. So we had other choices as far as other candidates, and there's some very, very well qualified people. But we chose just to have these two so that we can get some real answers and real questions and have a real debate instead of having 3 or 12 or 14 people up here that are all taking up a lot of time. So that is the reason that we made this decision. We're a private organization, and some people wanted to have other people, and they put their 2 cents in. However, what we did was we reached out to all 14 candidates, and we said, if you want to have a Zoom call with all of our members who want to log on, we'd love to have you on a Zoom call. So we have a Zoom call that's set up with quite a few of them. I don't think all of them had responded to us, but quite a few of them did. So if you go to our website, it's the SOHA914.com. If you go to that website, you will see the different Zoom call times. You can log on and you can talk to the candidates. So that's a lot of fun. Okay. Code of conduct. This is very important. I need every single person to listen to this. These two ladies are running for an office. Whether you like what they say or whether you don't like what they say, show them some respect, please. Okay? This is a private event. This is a private event by RSVP first. This room we rented. We rented this room. We paid full price to the City of Los Angeles Parks and Recreation. If you shout out, if you have a issue, if you guys disrupt this room, you will not be given a warning. We have different people that are keeping an eye on the crowd. You'll be asked to leave. Okay? That's simple. We're not going to accept any disrespect or any shout outs. This isn't city council where you can make a big scene of things and they let you go through. The loudest applause in the audience is our former council member, Paul Krikorian. How many clown shows did you see, Paul? You don't want to respond to that. All right. You look 10 years younger since you haven't been serving office. All right. Let's see. I think that's it. So actually, I have one question because I get to ask the candidates one question. It's a yes or no answer. And it's the same question to both of you guys. Nithya, Karen, the question is this. If either of you make the runoff, will you commit right now to have a debate with whoever else makes the runoff on the 3rd Wednesday in July? Karen? Nithya? Yeah. The third Wednesday of every month, we have our meetings here. Awesome. Okay, that's it. Phil, look forward to it. Oh, thank you. So the format was agreed to by both candidates. I'm not going to go over the format. You're going to go over the format because I already forgot it. But Phil's going to go over the format, and they agreed to both of them, so have at it.
All right, so we're shooting for 90 minutes, although I'm hearing that might be a little long. Opening introductions, a couple of minutes each. Then we have questions that we've gotten from the audience over the past few weeks. Then we're going to do what we're calling the lightning round, which is short yes or no or very short answer questions. And then the candidates get to ask each other a question or two, depending on how much time we have left, and then a couple of minutes for closing statements. So we were going to do a coin toss to see who gets to go first, but I don't know anybody that has any coins. So do you have one? Okay.
I have my lucky coin I keep everywhere with me. Who wants to call it? All right, I'm going to let it land on the ground, though. Go ahead and call it.
Tails.
Tails? It's a two-headed coin.
What is it?
What'd you call? Tails.
All right, tails it is. So, Councilwoman, do you prefer woman member, Nithya? Council member, okay. You get to start with your 2 minutes for an opening statement, please.
This is not long enough. Okay, hi, can everybody hear me? Great. Thank you all so much for being out here. My name is Nithya. I'm the council member for Council District 4, which you're in. I wanted to just share a little bit today about why I'm running. I didn't run for this seat because I have any personal animosity towards you, Mayor Bass. I have incredible respect for you and the work that you've done for LA. I ran because I'm frustrated, like so many Angelenos, about the direction that our city's headed on fiscal stability, on housing costs, on homelessness, and so many of the other serious issues that we're facing. And I feel an urgency and a vision to change and address those issues that I don't feel is reflected in our leadership right now. I've spent the last 5 years fighting to bring that urgency from my seat on the city council. I sent memos, I made motions, I found the data no one was even asking for. I spoke out against decisions that have ended up driving the city to the edge of bankruptcy and forced us to cut basic services to the bone, ways that you guys can all feel. And I kept hitting inaction. This city can work, and I believe that we all deserve a city that really works. We can have a city where you can call 911 and someone shows up. We can have a city without encampments. We can have a city that people can afford and then they're not leaving because it is so expensive. The path to get to these outcomes is not going to be easy. It's going to take impatience and fight and an extraordinary amount of work. But that's what I've been working to do in my district every day. We've worked tirelessly on homelessness, on housing, on safety, and the district is better. It is possible to do that citywide, to build a safer, more affordable, more sustainable city. And if I'm elected, I won't rest until we build that city together. Thank you.
It's good to be here with you this evening. Let me just say, when I became mayor, LA was in tough shape. The city had become unaffordable. There were massive encampments everywhere around our city, and homelessness was going up year after year. We were having smash and grab robberies around the city, and for decades, Angelenos have had to put up with broken streetlights and cracked sidewalks because past leaders, frankly, have avoided the tough fights. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and years before becoming mayor, I lived in the Valley. I worked in the NICU, taking care of premature babies, and I worked at LA County's emergency room. I have never shied away from tough fights. If anything, I have leaned in. And so in 3 years, homelessness is finally going down 17.5%, 2 years in a row, while homelessness has gone up in the nation. I have fast-tracked 42,000 units of affordable housing, and crime, especially crime, homicides have been going down. However, whenever there is a problem like the problem here, I have organized and pushed LAPD to surge officers and resources. I have fought to hire more officers, and I established a crime prevention office within my administration. We are installing 60,000 solar lights, which is the first step toward a comprehensive infrastructure plan, which our city has not had. I'm running in my second term so I can finish the job. We have much, much more to do. I have laid the foundation for LA to become affordable again, where kids and parents don't have to fight their way through tents to get to school, where families feel safe, and where Angelenos can be proud of our city. Thank you.
All right, so my first question to Mayor Bass, to follow up on that, given all that you just said, why do so many people still feel that the city is in a crisis mode? They don't feel the positive developments that you cite.
Well, let me just say that, again, homelessness going down 2 years in a row for the first time doesn't mean we don't still have homelessness. Affordability is still a crisis. It is a national crisis. The role that we have with affordability is making sure that we have enough housing. And so fast-tracking housing, and also an ordinance that I launched, the adaptive reuse ordinance, allows us to repurpose vacant office buildings into housing. That's a potential additional 45,000 units of housing.
So you're saying patience.
Well, no, I'm not just saying patience. I do not have any patience, honestly, which is why I have come at this job with a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week commitment. Because when I take on an issue and I go head in to an issue, I will stick with it like a dog on the bone. Councilwoman, you are in the leadership of City Council. You are, until you step down, the third position before being president of the City Council. You chair, I know, but you just stepped down, and you only stepped down because you were running for office. You have been in City Hall actually twice as long as I have. You chair one of the most important committees.
All right, we're gonna do some questions to each other.
Oh, I wasn't going to ask her a question.
Okay.
I was just making the point.
So the same question to you, Councilmember, and I think you said it in your opening statement, the sense of urgency. I mean, when you drive around the city, are you proud of what you see? Do you sense there's a crisis that we have to resolve?
So I'm proud of some things that I've been able to do in my role as the council member. As one of 15, but as the chair of the Housing and Homelessness Committee for the last couple of years, I've been able to make progress that has improved the lives of renters across this entire city. I spearheaded the process that led to the strongest renter protections passed in the city in 40 years. We lowered allowable rent increases in rent-stabilized units for the first time in 40 years here in this city, in a city that is so unaffordable. It is driving people out. But I will say that my frustration with what's happening here, I don't think I'm alone. And a lot of those changes, those degradations in the quality of life have happened more recently. It is only recently that we've had 30,000 streetlights out. It is only recently that the time to fix a broken streetlight has grown to a year on average. In the richest country in the world, in its second largest city, it takes a year on average to fix a broken streetlight. Why is that? Why is that? No, it's actually grown a lot significantly. It wasn't that much when I first started. The reason is we can't fund the staff to pay for people to fix the streetlights because of bad fiscal management and bad budgets set by the leadership of this city.
Right, so
and I'm fighting back against that.
A quick follow-up to that is, why did you wait until literally the last second to run against the mayor?
You know, I have been frustrated for a long time. And I think a lot of people in Los Angeles have been frustrated. A lot of people share my frustration. And I kept waiting for this mayoral election to have a real conversation about what was going wrong and how things could get better. How can we fix the issues that are facing us? How can we address what is happening before us unless we actually talk about the problems that we have honestly with the public.
So you felt
Unless
you'd be the
we-
best candidate at that point?
Unless, well, it was going to be, I think, 4 more years of the status quo and not a lot of challenges to that status quo. And I think that's a problem for a city this big, this vibrant, this exciting, where everyone feels like things are challenged. I think having that conversation and having a vision for how to change things is really important.
So talking about the status quo, one of the most significant issues for this community, and we got so many questions about this, is SB 79, which increases density in single-family neighborhoods around transit-oriented development. Mayor, I think it's fair to say that you really didn't fight too hard against this, and you essentially are in favor of it. Yet I don't think anyone in this room wants to have a multi-story apartment building built on the lot next to them.
Yeah.
Or in a house. So I guess the question is, as mayor, how would you implement this, and how do you preserve the quality of single-family neighborhoods?
Yeah, so here's why we had SB 79 come down upon the city of Los Angeles. It is because this city has not grappled seriously with the housing shortage in ways that demonstrate results to Sacramento. And when they don't see results happening, they impose regulations on us that we don't like. And instead of stepping up, as the largest city in California, we should have stepped up and said, here's how we want this density to play out in our neighborhood. Here's what we would like to see. We'd like to see smaller scale buildings. We'd like to see density of the nature that feels good in our neighborhoods, that's welcoming to our neighborhoods, that actually addresses our housing crisis. But we didn't do that. Other people on the council voted to just oppose it, and Mayor Bass wrote a letter opposing it to Sacramento, and that did nothing. The law was implemented anyway, and now we have to grapple with the results. What if we proactively planned for the future that we know we need? What if we proactively planned to build the housing that Angelenos are desperately asking for? What if we planned to build enough housing to address our enormous housing shortage? What would that city look like? And let's build that city.
Plenty of people have planned for it, but it hasn't happened.
Sorry?
Plenty of people have planned for it, but it never happens.
No, we have not accommodated the kind of density that SB 79 is asking for. It is actually moving us towards addressing the housing shortage that we have, and we should have been saying how we wanted our city to look.
I guess the question, and Mayor Bass, you could follow up on this, please. The question is, at what cost? I mean, do we build density at the expense of single-family neighborhoods like most of these folks in Sherman Oaks live in?
What I want to say is that we don't have to do that if we plan for it.
But now it's a reality. The law is in effect.
Excuse me, but SB 79 didn't pop up overnight. So all of those things that you just said, you're in charge of.
No, I'm not.
You chair the committee
No, I'm
on
not.
housing and homelessness.
I'm sorry. This is.
And by the way,
That
SB
is
79,
false. That is false.
Having worked up in Sacramento and been a part of the legislature, by the time you get a bill that's ready to be introduced and is viable, you've been cooking it up for a couple of years. As I mentioned, you've been there twice as long as I have. You are playing a leadership role. So I don't understand. I mean, you could have done everything that you're just talking about.
I mean, I guess I'm
Before
a little
I got there.
I'm a little confused. I was on council for 2 years before you got there, not in leadership, never on Plum. Are you actually trying to tell me that as one of 15 council members, one who has pushed for better planning practices and been struck down, one who has pushed for actually grappling with density and been pushed back on by the rest of the council, you're saying that somehow I should have gone around 14 other council members and done this?
But that is how it works.
I know. The mayor is in charge of the departments. The mayor is in charge of the departments. The mayor is the leader of the city. And to deflect responsibility to one of 15 council members for taking responsibility and taking charge of a city and its departments, to me, is just, it's deflection.
I have no problem accepting responsibility. The problem is that for you to act as though you're like brand new, or you've been on the outside for the last almost 6 years, is not accurate. So some of the work that should have been done to prevent SB 79 is work that you could have done.
So
as
Mayor,
a council member.
And I said I did do that work. It didn't pass through council. I pushed for those changes. I did everything I could as one of 15. I did. I did the work.
So
I've
let me
always done the work.
Well, let me ask you, Councilmember, how do you see SB 79 impacting Sherman Oaks going forward?
Yeah, so I think like the way in which the law is spelled out, we don't have right now a lot of impacts from the highest density developments, but we do have to account for some greater density. And so the question is, can we put forward a plan in this neighborhood and in every neighborhood across Los Angeles, because every single neighborhood is dealing with this issue, that accommodates the rules and regulations of that legislation and that gets us to the housing density and housing capacity that they're asking and mandating that we do. We can do that. We can do it in ways that subvert some of the intent of the law in terms of the heights. If we
So you can build a 4-story building instead of an 8-story building.
absolutely.
But it's the same difference.
No, I don't think so.
It isn't. You're still putting it in a single family
Well, it can be on our
zone
major
home.
boulevards and thoroughfares. You can accommodate it on our major boulevards and thoroughfares. You can put gentle density duplexes, triplexes in some single-family neighborhoods that are near transit.
You agree with the goal of preserving single-family neighborhoods?
Some single-family neighborhoods can be preserved. I think some of them will have to accommodate more density when they are near transit.
right.
I know some
All right,
people
well, let me
don't
ask
like
Mayor
it.
Best, how do you see
So,
79
well-
impacting Sherman Oaks specifically?
Well, let me just say that, and I know that there's several people here know that I always talk about Sherman Oaks wherever I go, because I started when I was a candidate here, and I thought you guys were the perfect example of where you want to maintain your single-family homes, neighborhoods, but you also said, you right there, you also said that you have commercial strips that are underutilized and that housing could be built there. I think there's a great example of it in the 8th Council District with our council president. You go down Crenshaw Boulevard, that neighborhood, a historic neighborhood, has been preserved, but there's hundreds of units of housing on Crenshaw. The thing is that I don't like, now I'm saying this as a former legislator and a former Speaker of the House up there, I don't like it when Sacramento tells us or mandates us or order us to do things that we were already doing. One thing that we have done in this city is we have revised zoning laws and all to fast track or incentivize 500,000 units being built. I fast tracked 42,000. So we are already getting the job done. We did not need Sacramento to come in with a heavy foot and tell us what we needed to do here.
Yes. And
All right, well, let's one last comment on this, and then we got to get to another question.
I'll just share one last comment. I want to say that accommodating new housing and addressing our housing crisis is going to require some change in our neighborhoods. That is a message that a lot of people don't want to hear, but that is unfortunately how we will revitalize this city, how we will keep it resilient into the future, how we make it affordable into the future. We desperately need this housing. And what I want to do is go out here and not lie to you that we can keep everything the same and Sacramento will not intervene. That is not possible. And you've seen the impacts of that dishonesty in these rules and regulations that have been pushed on us. What I will come out to you and say with honesty is to say, let's figure out a way to accommodate that housing in ways that you welcome, in ways that make your neighborhoods feel better. And I will always come at you with that honesty.
So thank you. Since we're talking about density and what's been designated as transit-oriented developments, TODs, to promote people to live near mass transit. So after decades, as you know, Metro finally approved a plan for a subway through the Sepulveda Pass north into Sherman Oaks.
Very exciting.
Which Bob can tell us about in greater detail later. Which is great. So what people may not realize is that the mayor is a Metro board member. You can appoint, I believe, 3 members additionally, so obviously a lot of control. So the question is, how are you going to pay for this subway? Because similar to the state bullet train, the money is not there yet. So how are we going to pay for that subway?
Yeah, I think we have some money. We have some money.
A
We
very
have some
small
money
percentage.
for this train, but we have a huge gap missing right now. A huge gap, and we picked a very, very
Like
expensive.
tens of billions of dollars, conservatively.
I think it's 15 billion that's missing in our, or maybe more.
That's
It's
anyway.
huge. It's an enormous gap. I think we have to get creative about how we find financing for this, because this is going to be a transformative project. It is going to make it so quick and so painless.
Yeah, we know.
And
we
you're
know
not going to get
benefit.
on the
You don't have to
405.
convince
It's
anybody
amazing.
of that.
No, it's amazing. And I think it's worth investing in as a city. So let's think about, can we find funding from pension funds that are investing in infrastructure as they're doing in other places? Are there innovative public-private partnerships that we can put in place that are going to get us to the dollars more quickly? Are there ways to have specific incentive-oriented financing districts that can take tax dollars from property value increases around the areas that can put it back into the project? I think we do have to get creative without putting a greater burden on the people that live in this city.
Mayor Bass, the same question. How do we
Sure.
pay for
Well,
this?
as a member of Metro, when you plan these projects, this project isn't even scheduled to begin for years
Well,
and
that's
years.
a whole other issue.
Which means, though, that you start planning for that now and looking for resources. So in a couple of days, we're going to begin the D line down Wilshire Boulevard. Now, that has taken years and years and years. And so you don't have the money in the bank when you start the project, but you plan for it going forward. And I know that Metro will be doing that. What has been great about us in our city and our state is that we've not been dependent on the federal government. Of course, we want federal money, but we took the step to tax ourselves. And that's why we've been able to build the lines that we have so far.
So the theory is, let's get it approved, let's keep it moving forward, and we'll figure out the funding as we go.
We have lots of lines in the region like that.
All right, so the issue of homelessness, we could obviously spend the entire evening talking about that. It's rare for city council members to criticize each other publicly, or for city office holders to criticize each other
Doesn't
publicly.
feel like that when I'm on there.
Although that trend is changing with Councilwoman Rodriguez, who I think spoke to Sherman Oaks homeowners recently. The city's homelessness system is, quote, broken and dysfunctional, a merry-go-round from hell, and is demanding an overhaul of how the city manages its homelessness spending. So I know this is obviously the issue of our time, so let me start with the challenger. You tout 54% reduction in encampments and tents in your district. I'm not going to quibble over the numbers, but as mayor, what would you do to continue to have an impact? What would you do differently? What isn't being done now?
Yeah, so right now at the City of Los Angeles, we are spending a lot of money on homelessness, but despite my best efforts to create real oversight, performance oversight, and accountability in City Hall, to create a Bureau of Homelessness Oversight that can track every dollar, that can make sure that every dollar that's being spent is actually being spent on outcomes that we're paying for, we still have not staffed up. The departments are not moving fast enough. The departments that are headed by the mayor are not moving fast enough to actually create that accountability and put it into place. It took me a long time when I first got into the city to realize that no one was in charge.
Can you believe you're even saying those words?
I can't, because I've been pushing to change it, and that change just hasn't happened, and it's really, really frustrating.
So accountability is a key for you.
Yes, expenditures to LAHSA have increased by 15 times just over the space of a few years, and everything that we ask for in terms of accountability, we've outsourced to an agency that is falling apart. And a lot of people on the city council have been satisfied with that. I haven't been. I created the first data on every bed across the system and made sure that those beds went from 80% full to 94% full. I created the first data about every HHH unit and made sure that those went from 72% full to over 90% full. I did that as a council member, applying for grants and getting staff from outside of the building to do the work that the city should be resourced to do. That's what I want to do when I'm mayor. Create the system that guarantees outcomes on something that we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on.
So Mayor Bass, one of your central campaign points is that you've reduced homelessness. You mentioned it for a couple of years in a row, although there might be some here who quibble with the way the counts are done, but we can discuss that later. Is that enough? I mean, I know in your campaign ads, you've said our homeless policy consists of moving the homeless from one block to another, which I don't think is really fair or accurate. I know the Inside Safe program has moved, I don't know what the exact totals are, but weekly, there are more than one operation. is moving people from an encampment into a motel where they theoretically receive services, and then 40% of them go back to the street, an effective way to manage this program, and what more do we need to do?
Oh, gosh, just lots and lots. But let me just tell you that on day one when I took over, I didn't even go to City Hall. I put our city in a state of emergency because,
You were at the
frankly,
Emergency Operations Center.
having people on our street, and I think many of the people in this room have been in LA for a long time, and we did not have street homelessness like that. This is an emergency. It is completely unacceptable to have people on our streets, period, which is why I jumped in response to that emergency. I didn't want to spend a year studying it. I didn't want another blue ribbon commission. I wanted to get people off our streets. But we need to be very clear. This has been a system that has been dysfunctional from day one. This system is over 30 years old. So much of what the councilwoman said, there's a lot of agreement there. But what is fundamentally different is that I believe in getting people off our streets. The bureau that she's talking about, we still have positions to staff, but we have 11 people already in staff. There needs to be 21, and we're beginning to hire those people now. Eventually, the city of Los Angeles needs to have our own system and not be dependent on the county. The council has been complaining about not getting services from the county. The councilwoman talks about advocating for the county to deliver the services, but you have some of your colleagues that have been advocating for 12 solid years. It's time we take full responsibility for homelessness in the city of Los Angeles and end our dependence on the county.
So to continue with Councilmember Rodriguez, she said of Councilmember Raman, it's unfortunate that Ms. Raman's newfound sense of urgency, accountability, and ambition has not been applied in her current leadership overseeing homeless policy, that you sat on reforms for the last 3 years and only now are talking about them. I don't imagine you agree with that.
No, and I've created the very first, I mean, we talk about data and accountability and transparency. There was no data about homelessness when I first got to the city. The first data that we created because of my effort and my work. It was painstaking work.
What do you mean there was no data on homelessness?
There was nothing.
Like on what? We knew how many people were out there.
We didn't know.
We knew how much we spent.
We didn't know where we were investing in thousands of shelter beds across the city. We didn't know whether they were empty or full.
There wasn't a lot of deep dive into
We didn't know
data.
how long people were staying in those shelter beds. We didn't know whether all the outreach teams, the hundreds of people who were out on the streets giving out water bottles, we didn't know what they were doing. If we don't know, if we don't have that data, we cannot say that our system is working to do the things that all of you are taxing yourselves to make it do.
Did we have that data, Mayor Bass?
What did you say?
The data, do we have the data that she was talking about?
Well, first of all, she's talking about 3 years before I got there, and I
No,
would
no.
agree. No, you just said when you got there, you didn't have the data.
Yes, and we
All right,
haven't
so
now
agree.
because
I don't
of-
think it's productive to argue over this. I think what people want to know is, what are you going to do going forward?
Yes.
What we're
Because
gonna
when I
do-
drove here from
absolutely.
Studio City here tonight, I passed naked people, I passed homeless people, we all did. We passed encampments, and despite the fact that homelessness is down, and despite the fact that you want accountability, the feeling is that it's as bad as ever, and the feeling among many is that, in your case, you're more interested in preserving the rights of the homeless than the rights of homeowners and renters.
No. Absolutely not.
So if that's wrong, feel free to address it.
No, I'm absolutely not. I mean, we have worked tirelessly to get encampments off the streets and indoors. That is the work that I've done in my district. I was doing it before Mayor Bass got into her seat, and I've done it since then on my own in my district. Over and over again, when there is a tent, when there is an encampment, my team is out there working to get them off the streets and indoors. That's why we've achieved a large reduction in homelessness in my district. That is why. And by the way, I just do want to say that this is really the thing that drove me into running for office in the first place. I saw a policy here in Los Angeles where homelessness went up. It was fully illegal to camp on the sidewalks, and it has been illegal. 4118, 5611, all these laws have been in place. And while these restrictions on camping have been in place, homelessness has gone up. Homelessness has gone up significantly. And we were not doing the work that we needed to do to get people indoors. When I was elected, that changed in Council District 4. Encampments went down, tents went down, and that is the work that I focused on.
Mayor Bass?
Yeah, well, I just have to say something. You were removing tents. This was not done on your own. You have pushed us. You have pushed us around Inside Safe and insisting that Inside Safe come to your district. You've had major encampments. The very first Inside Safe was on Cahuenga. You had a horrific one off of the 405, and you insisted on us removing that.
Yes.
We have been involved in your district over 21 times. So this is not about work that you did on your own.
Sorry, I just do want to say to everybody, Inside Safe is paid for with general fund dollars. Those are your tax dollars. I was advocating so much for your tax dollars.
We're just happy that it happened.
Yeah, to come and help us in our district. That is exactly what we should be doing.
But you mentioned
that, by the way, just as a council member, your role is to be the squeaky wheel for your constituents. So what Mayor Bass is describing right now, me begging for resources for our district, for those beds that I didn't have available to me, that is exactly my role as an elected official for this district, and I played it well.
So you mentioned 4118, which basically, to sum up, is law that requires people to move if they're camped outside of school, a church.
Parts of it.
So it's a very sensitive subject because just in the news a couple of weeks ago, you, as you have done before, you vote against the 4118 enforcement, which most of your colleagues, except for three.
I vote against establishing the new regulation. So it's not against enforcement. I don't get to decide enforcement. I'm an elected official in LA. The law are the law.
But
and
you voted against 4118s, which astonishes so many people. And I think one of the quotes that you've said is, it doesn't make school children any safer if the homeless are moved 500 feet away from their school. Do you still believe that? I mean, you have young children yourself.
Yes,
it seems like obvious it would make it safer if they were further away from a school.
Here's the thing. I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 10-year-old twins who walk to school every single day. I don't want my kids walking by encampments. I don't want your kids walking by encampments, regardless of whether they're within 500 feet of a school. They shouldn't be walking by encampments at all. That's why we shouldn't tolerate encampments near schools, near parks, and in my district, we did the work. Tents and encampments are down. Here's how we did it. Real outreach, real treatment, real housing. 4118 is not good enough. Here's what's wrong. It doesn't keep kids safe enough. It doesn't keep families safe enough. It doesn't keep the people on the street safe enough. At its best, at its most effective, it moves encampments a block down the street. When I'm mayor, if the council wants to create new 4118 zones, I'm not going to stand in the way. But I got into politics to address the homelessness crisis with honesty and with results. And I have a real plan to end encampments, not just to manage the crisis, to end the crisis of unsheltered homelessness on our streets by the end of my first term. I have a real plan to do that, and to do that is to actually direct resources at people, housing resources, and to manage our dollars, not spend $100,000 on a single motel room per person per year, but to manage our dollars as effectively as possible to bring every single person on our street in tents and encampments indoors in 4 years. And it is possible.
You can go wherever you want with that. You want to talk about 4118 enforcement
Well, yeah, but I also have to say is that you said that you would be honest with people, and you know that there's no motel room that costs $100,000.
No, it does. I can send you the report.
No, it doesn't.
It is from
But
the
anyway,
CAO.
You're talking about the annual cost?
Yeah, but
What is the annual cost?
The annual cost is about $45,000.
So-
because the county also reimburses money.
But the strategy seems to be to clear the encampments, put them in motels, and then
No,
theoretically,
let me just tell you.
there's permanent supportive housing down the
Well,
road.
and let me just tell you that what we really have to do, and what I will do in my second term, is to really build out the comprehensive services that people need. I worked in the emergency room. My patients
What does
were
that-
unhoused.
what does that mean?
What that means is that it starts with health, first of all.
Right, but what does that mean? New clinics, new mental health hospitals?
No.
What?
Fortunately, help is on the way. Voters a couple of years ago voted to build new mental health institutions that are being built in our city right now. One of the largest ones is opened up. You and I haven't talked about that. St. Vincent's Hospital
All right.
that will have 800 beds. But what I think we need to do, again, we cannot, what the city has done for the last 30 plus years is hope that the county would deliver services.
Yeah,
And
we're
so-
moving past that.
And that's not right. And by the way, we need to get out of motels. There's new and improved congregate shelters, not the tents, not the cots in a warehouse where there's a modicum of privacy. There is publicly owned land that we can build. There's a lot of different examples of things that we can do
You're
to build.
very anxious to jump in here.
No. Go ahead, please. I guess I would just say that, it's been 3.5 years, you've been mayor, and we've had time to build a system, and we're still moving with the most expensive version of Inside Safe that you started
Your
with.
committee,
that
your
you started with.
researchers
And I've been
said-
I've been trying over and over again to actually create a system. As one of 15 council members, even as the chair of the committee, I've passed motion after motion, and nothing happens. The power to move departments, the power to convene the county lies with the office of the mayor.
All right.
And,
Mayor Bassett.
If I could just say,
Yeah.
if all of you are happy with our response to homelessness right now, if all of you are
Nobody's happy with it. That's why we're
if all
here.
of you are satisfied, the incumbent who leads our response to homelessness is on the ballot. I just feel like we can do better, that we can build a real system, that we can build a sustainable system that can bring everyone indoors and not tolerate nibbling at the edges.
Mayor Bass, is it accurate to say that you've blocked an audit of Inside Safe from the controller's office?
Well, yeah, it is, because I don't believe that one elected official should audit another one. It politicizes the entire process.
Isn't that
I
their
have
job?
had no, it's actually not. According to our city charter, it is not the job of the controller to audit other elected offices. It is the job of the controller to audit departments. I have been working much better with the controller. I have asked him to do a number of audits. I've wanted him to do audits of our housing authority. I've wanted him to do audits of our housing department. He's moving in that direction now.
Okay.
But let me just say that the researchers that you hired, Councilwoman, on your committee have said that Inside Safe is the second most cost-effective program, hold on, to end street homelessness. The first most cost-effective is when you actually buy a building. And the money that was sent to the city during COVID was actually money that I fought for when I was a member of Congress to make sure that LA had the resources to address homelessness during COVID.
The cheapest response to addressing homelessness is a voucher program that it can't meet everyone's needs, but it can meet a large percentage of people's needs who are on the street. It costs a third of what our moteling program does.
The vouchers
And
to go where?
Vouchers to go into master lease buildings, into affordable housing buildings that have empty rooms.
Is that not Section 8 vouchers?
No, it's city-funded vouchers. But
All
I just want to say here that those vouchers cost a third per person of the Inside Safe program, and 75% of those people who have those vouchers end up in permanent housing as opposed to
Right,
just
but the difference is the
28%.
Inside Safe program shows up with a bus and with counselors and services and
but then
transports
people
them.
stay there for a year or more.
Right.
And-
You know, and I
Are
think
we
we
gotta-
need to,
so
we need to move.
let me ask you-
we
let me
need
ask
to
you a
build-
question.
What does a system look like? You don't put people in a hotel room and then leave them there for a year. That doesn't seem like a system to
No,
me.
it doesn't.
It just does
what-
not.
Reliable numbers are difficult to come by on this, but what number do you use when people say what percentage of people on the street are mentally ill or addicted? What percentage in your experience?
You know, so yes, there's two different ways to think about this, okay? Homelessness.
Bad one and a very bad one?
Yeah, well, one that's quite bad and one that's less bad, okay? The people on the street who are on the streets right now, are the sickest in many ways.
Right, so I'm
the
just
most
asking, what
addicted.
percentage?
But that's not the entire homeless population. A lot of people who are experiencing homelessness are not even visible. The people who have the
I mean,
ability
is
to
it 50%?
stay housed,
Is it 90%?
I think there's a lot. I think it's probably like 50% have some
what
kind
numbers
of
do you-
illness,
does
some
your-
kind
your
of
people tell
issue.
you?
But a lot of the people who are not sick you will never see them.
Okay.
They're on a couch. They're in a garage.
Okay.
They're staying out of sight. So the visible population is much sicker
Okay.
and is struggling with more drugs than other issues.
It's a chicken and egg issue because, many people, and I would challenge anybody here to go sleep out on the street for 3 weeks and tell me your mental health is the same as it was when you were housed, or that you wouldn't use substances. So I would say if you look at it in that broad stroke, even the people that are hiding their homelessness, there is mental health issues, which is why I'm excited that St. Vincent will open with 800 beds. There's new facilities being built on the property of County
right.
General Hospital. We need the facilities.
All right. What percentage of your work time is devoted to homelessness as an issue?
What percentage of what?
Your time?
My time? A tremendous amount of my time. The only reason I ran was because of this.
I know. I'm asking you for like an approximate number. Is it like half the time? Or three
I
quarters?
would say 30%. And considering my responsibilities, that's
What
a
about
lot.
you?
The housing and homelessness issues together probably take up like 50% of my,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
30 to 50%.
Do we want to keep talking about this, or do you want to move on to? Move on. Okay. Can I just do one last quick question? Okay, we'll move on. LAPD.
Great.
We have some of our fine men and women in blue here. LAPD has about 8,300 officers. The magic number seems to be around 10,000. What's your number? Let's start with the Councilmember Raman. What's your number and how would you get there?
I think right now the goal is to try and preserve who we have. We've thrown an extraordinary amount of money at LAPD over the last few years. Extraordinary amount. With the promise of increasing our force, we haven't even managed to retain our force. We paid so much in our last contract to LAPD. It was more money than the city even had. And in response, the force shrunk. That is the reality of what we're facing right now. So my goal is to let's keep the number as is, and let's have an honest conversation about public safety. Let's have an honest conversation about public safety.
We're not having an honest conversation?
We're not, because every year politicians make promises that we're going to put more money towards the problem and that we're going to grow the force, and that just hasn't happened. And so, and what do we need to do now? We need to make sure that people are safe. We need to make sure that when you call 911, someone picks up the phone quickly and someone shows up when you call, and that it's the right person that comes when you call.
Does that not happen now?
I don't think it happens. Do you feel like 911 calls are being answered appropriately? I feel like I hear a lot of complaints. I hear a lot of complaints about this.
So Mayor Bass, what's your number and how do we get there?
My number is 9,500. However, in this year's budget, we are struggling to retain the officers that we have. Remind everybody, in a few short weeks, we have the World Cup coming. A year and a half later, we have the Olympics coming. If we don't want federal government intervention, we better increase our number. We had to pay people.
Right. But, for example, in this community, we've all seen on the news.
Wait. Can I just say something? You know, when you're worried about the money, and of course I am, very much so, if you don't have a large enough force, all you're going to do is pay a whole lot in overtime. You're going to continue to pay, and then don't expect your 911 calls to be answered. For the nation's second largest city, we still have a relatively small police department. Now, I am big on crime prevention, which is why I established that office within the mayor's office. We have to do both. It is not either or, but the first responsibility I have as your mayor is to keep the city safe. And keeping the city safe means we need assistance from law enforcement, Law enforcement definitely needs to be improved, but we can't say we have some other way to address the robberies that people in this neighborhood have been experiencing other than police.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that we signed an unsustainably large contract in 2023
To keep officers.
under this mayor's leadership with the promise of increasing or even retaining our current police force. Now we're paying $500 million more for 1,500 fewer officers than we were just a few years ago. It's an extraordinary number. And by the way, the deficit that we are in, what came from unsustainably high contracts that we signed that did not get us to the public safety results that we wanted. And now it's impacted our ability to figure out how to actually keep people safe. We have fewer officers, we're paying out more in overtime, we're not hiring 911 call takers, we don't have the money to fix street lights, so your street lights are out, so you're less safe on your block. All of the things that matter for safety, we're not able to fund. We can't fund a citywide system of unarmed response. We could actually have people who can come out to calls for all of those calls. There's so many calls for 911 that are not for armed officers. If we could get some of those calls off of LAPD's books, we could do that. But we don't have the money to do that because we are in a huge budget deficit that was driven by the last contract that we signed. And I think that's a real issue.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, one of the reasons why it's been difficult to retain officers is because we are not competitive with what we pay, and we have to be able to compete. Now, again...
Competitive with who?
Oh, competitive with every city around, let me tell you. And one of the myths that we dispelled is that young people don't want to be officers. Yeah. One of the things that I had to do was make changes within the personnel department because it was taking them so long to get through the process. Yeah. But you have to pay officers if you want them to be here. And like I said, you either pay now or you pay later because you're going to pay in overtime costs and you're going to pay in compromising the quality of life in our neighborhood.
We paid so much. We paid so much. By the way, this thesis was not borne out. We paid so much. And LAPD, by the way, is a force that people want to work in. It is in every movie. It's in every TV show. People are excited about LAPD. It is a prestigious force to work in. We paid so much in our last contract that we ran out of money. Last year, we had $1 billion budget deficit. 1,600, yes, in part because of that. That was one of our terrible fiscal decisions, one of many. That we had 1,600 potential layoffs on the table, and in order to stave off those layoffs, that's what the mayor's budget came to us with. Every single city service was cut down to the bone. We don't paint over graffiti the same that we used to. We don't fill potholes the same that we used to. If it feels like your roads are getting worse, it's because we haven't paved a single mile of street for the first 6 months of this fiscal year because we did not have the money. And the person who sets the budget is our mayor, and we made mistakes.
Well, first of all, the mayor does introduce the budget to the council of which you are a member of and have voted on numerous budgets, reworks the budget and sends it back to me. So it's not like you're not participating in this process. You're participating in this process in a leadership role. So I think you should take responsibility. I am very happy to take responsibility for my part of it.
The idea that I, as one of 15 council members, have as much responsibility as you, I think, is patently false.
I didn't say you had as much responsibility.
And we do a
So
lot
I guess
on the council.
for both of you, the question is, let's say we want to increase the number of officers. Is increasing the salary going to be enough incentive? I mean, how do you do it? Like, is it a marketing campaign? What? Or you're saying you want to just retain, but how do we even do that?
I mean, I think retention requires planning. That means making sure, by the way, that we're hiring to attrition, right? And we need to be doing that. Our classes right now, despite, I'm not sure what personnel changes you've been making, but our recruit classes right now are less than half full. I believe our last recruit class was something like 23 people. Like, we are not hiring to even attrition.
When we finally got the class size that we needed, which was 56 officers, it took me changing the personnel department, leadership, a lot of staff inside it. You voted against it. Council blocked the money. You did.
Yeah, because
And
I knew.
so that class
sorry,
started-
that was
started
one
late.
That was one class that met higher, had a higher number. Every other class has been very small.
No.
And that budget was literally in 3 months, we could have planned and budgeted for the appropriate number of officers. We could have taken responsible budget decisions. This was political theater. And yes, I did vote against it because constituents deserve better than political theater.
We did plan for the hiring of the officers, but when the council did its work on the budget, the council cut the resources. Our class size has been significantly larger. It needs to be even larger than that. And I'm going to continue fighting for that.
Do you think the police protective union's campaign against you is fair? Is it going to hurt you?
I mean, when the last time when Mayor Bass was running, I think she called the Police Protective League's campaign pay-to-play politics of the worst kind. She paid them, now they're playing for her. So, you know, is it fair?
Do you want to expand on that?
No, I mean, that is what it is. They're funding a candidate.
So
who has
they're
given
supporting her because she supported
yes, they're
an
spending
increase.
millions of dollars. They will be spending millions of dollars in this race against me because I said I spoke the truth and I spoke out against an unsustainable contract that has bankrupted our city. I spoke out against it.
So speaking of budgets and contracts, we're talking about city services. We all got in the mail, I'm sure recently, the assessment for streetlights. Isn't that embarrassing to have to do that in a city with a $15 billion budget?
Well, let me just tell you what's embarrassing is the city should have done that 30 years ago, and the city didn't, because like I said in the beginning, past leaders have not wanted to take on tough fights. They've avoided them, and that's one of the big reasons why we have so many lights out. But I did launch about a month ago 60,000 solar lights to be put around the city. We need more than that. But what the city was doing year after year after year was replacing copper lights, even though they know the copper is going to be stolen. And they tried to tell me, well, that was cheaper. That makes no sense at all. So we did an arrangement with the Department of Water and Power that will not hit taxpayers, that is allowing us to install hundreds of lights a month. We have already started that. But let me just tell you something about your city that you might be surprised at. Our city has not had a comprehensive infrastructure plan. You wonder why sidewalks are broken and street lights are out and there's been a deterioration of our infrastructure? Because the city has never had a comprehensive infrastructure plan, which I have spent the last 2 years working on, and we rolled it out at the beginning of this week. It'll be similar to Metro in the sense that we're planning a lot of different projects, and we have to make those investments, and we will do that over time. But the city has had no plan, and we now have a comprehensive infrastructure plan. We started with the lights. We have much, much more to do.
Sorry, just on the comprehensive infrastructure plan, we have a plan to create a comprehensive infrastructure plan. The SIP that was released 4 years in to the mayoralty. We have a plan to create a plan. The plan that was put forward is just for infrastructure for the Olympics, which we were supposed to get last year. I would have liked it many years ago, but that is the project plan that is in front of us right now, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad we're moving forward on so many of the things that this city needed.
So this is something you agree on?
Yes, I absolutely believe that we need a capital infrastructure plan. We needed to have done this a while ago, and I'm glad that, Mayor, now you're feeling the urgency to put forward so many new initiatives now that you're up for re-election, but I would have liked to have seen this urgency.
Don't go there. Don't go there, because that urgency began the day I took office. But I didn't just slap a bunch of paper together. It took a while. By the way, I'll give you a copy of the infrastructure plan so you can see that it is comprehensive. It does roll out in stages. Some parts of the infrastructure plan requires changes to our charter, and so that is in place. The first steps and the first priorities are to make sure that our Olympic venues are prepared, because that is my responsibility as your mayor. We're not in charge of the games, but we are in charge to make sure that all of the venues will be able to be ready and receive the world.
All right, let me move on to another issue that's very, very big in this community and all of Southern California, is the film and TV industry. Every candidate has a plan to bring it back, to help. Let me start with Mayor Bass. I know you've been very vocal on this subject. What is your plan? Here in Studio City, for example, Radford Studios, CBS Radford is apparently going to be purchased by Netflix, which is a huge win for that property. But other properties may not be that fortunate, and film and TV employment is so far down. What is your plan to help in that area?
Sure, in two areas. One is advocacy, which we could talk in a minute, but I believe in pulling policies together by putting the people who are directly impacted. The industry came together. I established an entertainment industry council when I first came in. And by the way, I've worked with the entertainment industry for years before I ever thought of running for office, period. As a matter of fact, the very first tax credits was done when I was speaker. Paul Krikorian was in the assembly. It was something we worked on together. We got the first state tax credits done. I led on the city level the advocacy to make sure that we had an expansion of those tax credits, but the industry came together and they said, please do the following. We did all that they had suggested. Number one, they wanted one person in charge. They wanted a film czar. They wanted that person to be very knowledgeable about the city, not an expert in film. That's what they do. So we brought Steve Kang, who is the president of our Public Works Commission, to be that person, and they've been working together very well. Production is increasing in the city. I have reduced the cost of filming in LA. One example, Griffith Park Observatory, we reduced the fees by 70%. And so I've also expedited the permitting process so you can get your film permits quickly, and I also reduced the number of staff that need to be on site. These were the requests of the industry. We are working hand in glove together. These were their requests, and we're following through on it because I have been very committed to the industry, and my family, 3 generations, have been working in various aspects of the industry. Thank you.
Sounds pretty good.
And it's great to see that advocacy now. I think the film industry required advocacy for a long time. Jobs have been falling here in the city for a number of years now, and the mayor has to be the loudest advocate for the policies and programs that we need in order to retain our industry. I want a tax credit with no cap that is guaranteed years into the future, that accommodates above the line spending, and that thinks about post-production as well, in order to retain the largest number of jobs. That's what we need to be advocating for in Sacramento. That's what we need to be advocating for in DC, and that's what I would be the loudest advocate for if I were mayor.
But the problem is that, Councilwoman, with all due respect, in the time that you have been in office, you have never put forward one motion regarding the industry, and when there have been motions, you have recused yourself or missed the vote. And so when you talk about your commitment to the industry, it's nice that you have that commitment now. And unfortunately, if you weren't aware of my advocacy, maybe it was just that you weren't listening to what we were doing. I worked on the industry when I was in DC, when I was in the Judiciary Committee in intellectual property. So I have a long history there, and I continued that history as mayor.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, Hollywood is in peril today, and I feel that personally. My husband is in the industry. These job losses are impacting my community, my district, my constituents every single day, and I've fought for them. For the Radford project, my staff and I have probably spent over 100 hours with the previous owners trying to ensure that this studio was built. There was lots of community opposition to seeing it. That investment didn't move forward, they defaulted. But that's what you do as a council member. You work, you put your nose to the grindstone, and you push things forward. When you're a mayor, you have tools and a platform that I, as one of 15 council members, just don't have. I want to use that platform to advocate as loudly, as unequivocally for what we need to keep jobs here. That is my promise to you.
All right, there's an issue of ballot harvesting in elections. Organized groups, such as the DSA and others, help people submit ballots. Submitting a ballot for someone else is legal, but helping them fill it out is not.
Yeah.
Very difficult to enforce. So let me start with you, Councilmember. What is your position on ballot harvesting, and do you think it'll impact this election?
I don't know, because I've never engaged in a practice called ballot harvesting. It's just not, but I will say that.
You
I
mean
mean,
you
if it's,
personally?
No, I mean, I don't know about it. But I will say that I expect all elections to follow the law. I expect that everyone who is working on elections to follow the law, and I've always upheld the highest standards of ethics on these issues, and will always continue to. And it's really exciting. You know, I've run multiple campaigns now, including this one, without a lot of support from the political establishment, and the support from volunteers who've knocked on thousands of doors, who've made thousands of phone calls, has been really exciting.
Right. And
I like to get support through enthusiasm, through excitement about
Right.
elections, and I think that's how we should be winning
Right,
elections.
and the concern is that they're knocking on those doors and they're saying, let me show you how to fill out the ballot.
I don't know.
here."
This feels like I feel like this is a.
Well, I'm gonna ask Mayor Bass the same question.
This is
I mean, do you have-
completely.
Well, one, I question whether that's even illegal. It's certainly unethical, and nobody that I work with would be involved in that. And if they were, I would dismiss them immediately.
Yes.
So is this a bad question or
I mean, it's just not a.
bad question? Okay. I mean, we got several questions about that.
Several bad questions.
Yes. This.
So we want to move on to another segment as we wind things down, which we call the lightning round, just for lack of a better term. It's short answers. What's the biggest difference between you two, Councilmember?
Urgency, systems building, vision, hard work, accountability.
I think the biggest difference between the two of us is I think a lot of your ideas sound really, really good on paper. They're intellectual, they're academic, they're completely impractical.
So Mayor Bass, what issue is she completely wrong on?
I don't know about completely wrong, but basically our work together has really been on one subject, period. We've never worked on any other issue together. The issue that we've worked together on is homelessness, more so than housing, is homelessness. And we view that differently.
Same question for you. I mean, is there an issue that you fundamentally disagree on or you think she's wrong on?
How to bring down the cost of housing in Los Angeles. We have not addressed that. I feel like I've addressed that through my work on protecting renters, on bringing down allowable rent increases, and on housing production. Housing is subject to the laws of supply and demand. We cannot just stop housing and hope that the price of housing goes down. It's just not possible.
Well, let me ask you then, that is one of the questions. How do you, as mayor, bring down the cost of housing?
You have to open up the city to build more housing. Of exactly the kind of housing.
Of all kinds.
Of all kinds. And I think you need to build
Where?
Family units. I think you need to build multi-bedroom units. I think you need to.
So you're saying
open
if there's
up
an increased supply,
increased
the
supply, you
price
need
will
to
go
get
down?
the city out of the way. I think it would be, I put forward a housing plan that talked about so many of the ways in which our city departments actually stop new housing from being built. Our Department of Water and Power and our Planning Department and our other agencies combined mean that every permit for a new apartment complex, exactly the kind of housing we say we need, takes a year and a half or more on average. I put forward a whole suite of motions last year. I published a housing plan that on day one will change this. Will change this.
All right, Mayor Bass, how do you bring down the cost of housing?
Well, by building more, and again, my example is right here in this room. The Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, I think, has the best example. But I also have to say that a lot of these proposals that you're talking about, it's not like they made it to my desk and were vetoed. I don't think you've been able to get the support from your colleagues on the council.
All of these proposals have been passed. The departments slow walk them. The only way that departments move is with urgency and pushing from the mayor's office. That's the urgency I want to bring to this work. We need to push every department forward. We need to hire new general managers. So many of the general managers are the same as were there in the Garcetti administration. Let's bring leadership to our city that can achieve the goals that we have right now. This city is facing a housing crisis. Let's address it head on.
Mayor Bass, who would you say is your political hero or inspiration or role model?
Well, you know what I mean? I think, especially in the seat that I'm in now, Mayor Bradley.
Mayor Bradley?
I mean, I think about, the Olympics was 42 years ago, and we're still benefiting from the Olympics of 42 years ago. So I think that's an easy one.
Yeah.
Same question.
I think at this moment.
Oh yeah, I want to hear.
At this moment, I feel like Obama still feels like my political hero. His ability to communicate complex ideas, move complex things forward, and still have the charisma to relate to every single person. It's really a remarkable thing.
So a similar question. I hope you don't mind me asking this, but Mayor Bass, who is the most influential person in your life that turned you into the person that you are today?
I think those two girls sitting right there, who are my daughters, Yvette and Nithya. Raise your hands.
What about you, Councilmember?
I think my parents.
Yeah.
My parents definitely shaped me, and my brother is here too, and his wife, which I'm very grateful for. The family that I was born into has given me so much support and really shaped me, and I owe so much also to my husband too, who
I would say my
supports
parents
me.
too, but I don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
All right, one or two more of these, and then we're going to get to the fun part, and then your closing statements. Mayor Bass, what would you say your greatest strength is? Either as personally, as a mayor, as a politician.
My greatest strength, I believe, is my impatience, my resilience, my determination, and my strong, long history of collaboration and building coalitions and knowing how to work with people, even if they have drastically different viewpoints than I do.
And would you be willing to entertain a question about what you think you need to work on or maybe improve?
Sure, absolutely. I need to work on and improve, not smashing, I'm sorry, let me correct that. Dealing with our city bureaucracy and institutions that have been in place for decades. And the short amount of time you have the privilege of being in these positions and how much change you can bring about.
What would you say your greatest strength is?
I think my greatest strength, I feel I move with a lot of urgency. That definitely drives everything I do, but I will say that I think my strength in this role, and if I were mayor, my strength in that role would be my willingness to do the work. Like right now, we have a system where so many of the problems that we are facing require just scratching away at the system, pushing on it to make it work better. That relentlessness of pushing against a system that's broken, that I bring that to the table. That's why I've been able to get on the council not knowing anybody and pass so much legislation. That's why we were able to pass independent redistricting. That's why we were able to.
What do you think you need to work on a little bit?
I think let's see. What do I need to work on? I think I do need to. I didn't come in through the political establishment, right? I didn't come in knowing everyone in City Hall already. I didn't come in knowing every labor leader and every politician. And what I've learned and what I know I need to keep working on is that in order to make sure that your ideas aren't stopped, you have to invite people in before you try and put them forward.
Okay.
And so that I've learned that, and I'm getting better at that, and but I know I can do better.
All right, we have something interesting. You each get the opportunity to ask the other one a question. Who wants to go first? What would you like to ask the mayor that we haven't?
We've already been asking each other so many
Right,
questions.
but maybe something that you want to reiterate or something we haven't touched on or something you felt wasn't handled sufficiently?
Well, okay, I'll ask a question. Okay, I'll ask a question. So on your website, you have a page that's about the race, where you call Spencer Pratt a strong contender, and then have 2 pages of negative comments about me. And I'm curious, why are you promoting the campaign of a MAGA Republican who vows to work with ICE, who vows to attack LA's immigrants, who calls people zombies on the regular, calls 9/11 an inside job, who's appeared on Alex Jones? Is he preferable to you as a competitor than me? Is he preferable for LA?
He calls you and I, he's got some supporters here. He calls both of us zombies. No, I don't. LA deserves a plot twist. Okay. No, I don't think he is preferable as a competitor. I don't want any competitors. How about that?
Okay, but you don't talk about him much. You just talk about me.
Mayor Bass, what would you like to ask Councilmember Raman?
Well, I basically wanted to ask you because I just don't understand your position around encampments, because you vote over and over and over again to take tools away from people who are trying to remove encampments, especially near schools. Mm-hmm. It is completely unacceptable for there to be encampments near schools. And you know that I don't feel you have to call up the police to arrest everybody, but you vote against it every single time.
I'll say it again. I already said it once, and I'll say it again. I don't think 4118 keeps us safe enough. I think if we want to actually address encampments, I think if we actually had an honest response to people about how we actually address an encampment in a park or in a school, we would design a policy where we were actually targeting housing resources to those places, to sensitive areas first, because that's how you actually move people off the street.
She's describing inside safe.
No, that's what, and I have a policy today that I release that designs a system for Los Angeles that will address every single tent and encampment on our streets by the end of my first term, by doing exactly this, by building a system, not an incredibly expensive and uncoordinated system, but a true system that gets everybody indoors and actually addresses the question
and where
of
are
safety.
Where are you putting them?
Inside shelter, and then inside these voucher programs, into mental health institutions, into board and care facilities, into permanent supportive housing
Well, you make
units.
it sound easy. If it was easy, it would have already been done.
No, it's, you need, no. That is the system that I have been fighting to build, and faced resistance. You need resources to build it. You have to invest in it. We have to actually invest in a system that works. That's what I want to do. And
Mayor
only
Bass,
the mayor has
head.
the capacity to do that.
Yes, because I think she's, again, been there twice as long as me. You're in charge of the committee. You could be doing it now, but I think it's an example of something that is an intellectual idea. But when it comes down to it, if you expect homeless people to take a voucher and go get a private landlord
It's not
to
the
rent
only
a
option.
unit to them,
It's not the only option. It's not the only option.
So do it.
I've tried. I submitted. I'm sorry. And I want to just say that this is, I think, to pretend that a council member has the same powers as a mayor to create a system is patently false and is an abdication of the responsibility and power that the mayor of the city has. And I want to use that power to actually build out that system. And by the way, the voucher program that is being discussed here is one of many pathways into housing, and one that thousands of people across the city have successfully utilized to move indoors. It works, and it works better than shelter to actually get people permanently housed. Let's follow the data, let's build the system, and let's push to make every dollar of your tax dollars go towards getting every person in a tent and encampment off the streets as quickly as possible. That's the vision that I have for LA.
I don't know why you diminish yourself, because you are one of the most powerful members of the council. Before you stepped down to run, you were third in line for the presidency. You chair the Committee on Housing and Homelessness, and we have worked until just a couple of months ago, shoulder to shoulder on this issue in spite of our differences.
I don't.
Well, there is the little detail of that.
The comment was that you endorsed her. But...
You endorsed me too. We have worked together. I'm just frustrated now.
All right, so you want to do one more question each? You want to move on to the closing statements?
close,
Okay. Councilmember Raman, you have a couple of minutes to wrap things up.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all being here. Thank you for being so spirited. This is always the most fun debate that I get to participate in. LA is in crisis right now. And I think the idea that voters have to pick between maintaining the status quo and electing a Republican agent of chaos is a false choice. Our city deserves better than that. I got into public service as a volunteer because I thought we deserved better choices. Trying to help my neighbors who were homeless get off the streets after watching the numbers of tents and encampments grow for so long. And then I ran for city council with no political connections, no special interest money to offer better choices. And I've spent 5 years working every day to deliver better results for my residents, passing the strongest renter protections in this city in 40 years, driving a 54% reduction in tents and encampments in my district, arguing for fiscal responsibility so that you all get the services that you paid for. Our campaign has been powered by more than 1,000 volunteers, not a single corporate dollar. This is a totally clean money campaign. Our donations are driven by people who live in this city, people who want to fight for a better Los Angeles and believe we can build it. I believe it too, with everything that I have, because I have seen what Los Angeles can be. I came to this city as an adult looking for a better life. And this city opened its arms to me and my family. It gave us so much. And I have devoted my career to making sure it does the same for every Angelino who calls it home. This is the LA that I fell in love with. An affordable city, a safe city, a city filled with joy and with opportunity and hope for every single person who lives here. This is the Los Angeles that I'm fighting for, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you tonight, because that means you care about this city too. And I hope we get to fight for it together. Thank you.
Well, I want to speak now to Sherman Oaks and Sherman Oaks residents. We have had a close working relationship over these last 3 years. You have called on me when you've needed a response, and I have been there. Many of you have my cell phones. We've been working together to clear and restore the Sepulveda Basin, and we've made serious headway with much more to do. I want to continue that partnership. I want to work together to make sure that we have the best Olympic Games ever right here. I want to continue our partnership so that we can make sure that your neighborhoods are safe, make sure that you have enough officers, and that excessive overtime is not needed and 911 calls are answered promptly. I've taken on challenges that City Hall has ignored for years. We can and must end street homelessness, period. And we're going to do it only if we don't return to the mistakes of going backwards and failed policies of the past. Failed policies that I believe are going to increase street homelessness. And unfortunately, my colleague next to me, I believe a number of her policies will result to an increase in street homelessness, which is why a lot of those approaches have not been embraced in full by the council. We can repair our streets and improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. And I've begun acting on these challenges and making concrete headway, not just presenting you with fantasy ideas, which is why there are 42,000 affordable units of housing that are being fast-tracked, which is why their homicide is at a 60-year low. But when there is a problem like you have faced in this area and you call on me, I act. I ordered a surge when you needed a surge of law enforcement because of the robberies, and I will continue to fight. I will also fight for unarmed response, like the Circle program that I know is very popular here, and I want you to have as much of that as possible. I want to finish installing 60,000 solar lights. I want to make LA affordable again, where families feel safe and parents don't have to navigate their way through tents in order to get to school. Thank you very much. We have the best city in the world, and we can work together to continue to make it so. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both for the debate tonight. Thank you, Phil Schuman, for moderating this. For all you folks at home, we do meet here the third Wednesday of every month. This month, in 2 weeks, in the same room, we're going to be hosting our assessor. So come on here, see how your tax dollars are really spent, and thank you everybody for coming.